Now, we're going to talk about a very sensitive subject. We talked about it part 1 a couple weeks ago. We'll do part 2. And it's a subject that you may not quite understand the reason of the social implications of it. However, you should try to begin to look at it and try to understand. You're in the age of the woman, Aquarius, spiritual age. And at this point, it is the feminine principle in all which is raising itself in men as well. And so then you have this great social question concerning homosexuality. And the only reason that I deal with it is because I've seen the fundamentalist religions deal with it on the basis of guilt and fear and hate. And I don't really believe that anything should come out of the Bible or be connected with God that has to do with fear or guilt or hate. There's an interesting article in USA Today. I'm not going to date it because these tapes, sometimes you may be looking at this tape 2 years from now. God knows when. But anyhow, there's an interview with Mel White. He's an author. You know what he does? He's a ghostwriter. In other words, if I wanted to write a book, I am not a writer. I would give basically the idea, Mel White would sit down and write the book. He's a ghostwriter. He came out recently and made the statement that he was gay. Come out of the closet. The interesting part about this is he is a ghostwriter for some very prestigious religious people. Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson. And so on his first Sunday last year, Mel White addressed his employers, his old employers, to Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, and my other old clients on the religious right, whose anti-gay rhetoric is killing us, and to Billy Graham and my other old friends whose silence helps but not all that much, I say this: I will not hate you, for Jesus said love your enemies. I will not plot revenge against you, for Jesus says do good to those who despitefully use you and persecute you. And I will not stoop to using your techniques, half-truths, hyperbole, and lies, for Jesus said the truth will set you free. But this too I promise: I will not remain silent any longer. The religious right is wrong, wrong about the Bible, wrong about Jesus, wrong about God, wrong about the church, wrong about the family, and seriously wrong about gay and lesbian people. We are not the enemy. The real enemies are those who teach hate instead of love, those who use misinformation and fear tactics to raise money, those who play on ancient superstitions to destroy lives and wound families. All we want is our God-given right to live and to love with integrity and to take our place in the community as responsible neighbors. And faithful friends, Mel White. I thought this was interesting, how nature works. I mean, of all the people, this guy is going to write for Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson. Basically, that's where I'm coming from. Nobody's asking anybody's approval. Nobody's asking anybody's permission. But if I was to look at this Bible and say, wait a minute, somebody tell me, what the heck does this mean here? There's nobody around. I mean, everybody that was there 2,000 years ago, there's nobody around to tell me what this means. So I raise questions. Now, the point is, do I have a right to? Open to page 782 and verse 7. In Matthew chapter 7, verse 7, Jesus says, ask and it'll be given. Seek and you'll find. Knock and it'll be open to you. In other words, question. And when you question, you have to ask the hard questions. You have to ask the serious questions. You have to ask the questions that'll even make you sit up and say, whoa. But that's not going to cut it. You can't stop there. You've got to ask the question. You've got to look at whoever this is that you're following and ask serious questions. Say, what are the implications of this? What does this mean? I want to know. Or at least I want to try to find out. Where is this coming from? What's this all about? Sexuality, whether it be heterosexuality, whether it be homosexuality, whatever it comes out of a place that is a part of the human makeup called the carnal mind. We've seen religious fundamentalists place homosexuals, lesbian people under the guilt of of God by saying this is sin, this is sin, this is sin. But yet we looked last week, and real quickly we'll just recap. If you look at page 924, and you look in the book of Romans, Romans chapter 8, the Apostle Paul makes an interesting statement. He talks about the seat of all sexuality, whether it be homosexual, heterosexual, and the Apostle Paul makes this statement concerning the carnal mind, where sex comes from. The carnal mind is enmity against God. That means there's a mutual hatred. It is not subject to the law of God, neither can it be. It is not subject to the law of God. If it's not subject to the law of God, and it can't be subject to the law of God, how can people whose actions emanate out of the carnal mind be declared sinners? How could there be a violation of law if we're finding out that this particular aspect of the human brain is not subject to that law? I didn't put a carnal mind in your head. I didn't put a carnal mind in my head. It was put in there by the Creator. That thing which is not capable of obeying the law of the Creator was put in my head by the Creator. Now, if that's the case, then whose fault is it? Whose problem of it? Whose problem is it, if that is the case? There's another aspect of human sexuality that comes out of the ancient times, people referred to as eunuchs. Just real quick, we'll look at this before we get into something extremely sensitive. Eunuch is a castrated male, but in those days it not only meant a castrated male, it meant an effeminate male. It meant what you would call today someone who's gay. And Jesus Christ made a statement about those people. Page 796. Page 796, and in that statement, Jesus Christ makes the following. All I'm saying to you is, what kind of a game are we playing? If he said these things, doesn't the church, which claims to be followers of the Lord Jesus Christ, have a responsibility to tell people, Jesus said this? I have never heard a preacher, I've never heard a Falwell, I've never heard a Robertson, I've never heard a Pope or anybody else, or Billy Graham, ever make this statement that Jesus said this. And you never have either. But he did. And you have to understand he was talking about those people, many of those people that you today call gay. And look what he says in Matthew 19 and verse 12. For there are some eunuchs which were so born from their mother's womb. They're born that way. And here I hear all of the Falwells and the Robertsons and all of these people saying, oh, this is a matter of choice. It has nothing to do with the person. That's not what Jesus said. He says they're born that way. And then he turns around in the very next statement and he says, and there are some which were made that way of men, some which developed that way out of their life because of the way they were raised, because of their parents, because of whatever the circumstances were. But then this is the amazing thing. This thing which the church calls evil, this thing which the church says is a diabolical work of the devil, Jesus makes the statement then, and then there be eunuchs which have made themselves so for the kingdom of heaven. He that is able to receive it, receive it. What's that all about? And he looked at people, and a lot of people were looking just like the Falwells and the Robertsons and getting the smoke coming out of their ears. He said, if you can't hear it, you can't hear it, but get off their back. He that is able to receive it, receive it. Because there's not a whole lot of people that can receive it. Some are born that way. Some are made that way. And some make themselves that way for the kingdom of heaven. Isn't that interesting? Now, are we allowed to discuss the sexuality of Jesus? How quiet. Have you ever heard anybody discuss it? You know why you've never heard anybody discuss it? Because religion instantly considers human sexuality as dirty, filthy, and a sin, and can have no connection with the Christ. They don't understand human sexuality.